Good morning, students. Today our topic is oogenesis. In our previous lecture, we have discussed about spermatogenesis and the structure of sperm. So today we will discuss about oogenesis. What is oogenesis? Development or formation of ovum or an egg in female reproductive system, especially in case of human female. So as I have written over here, oogenesis is formation of ovum or egg. It is discontinuous process. Why it is discontinuous process? We will discuss it later in this very lecture. And the process of oogenesis or the process of the formation of ovum or egg takes place in three phases: multiplication phase, growth phase, and maturation phase, as we have studied in case of spermatogenesis. Okay, so before going through this oogenesis, these phases, uh, let's talk about how when a female fetus is developed during a gestation period inside the uterus, what are the various changes take place inside the female fetus. Okay, so here you can see the first month of gestation period, especially 6 to 8th week of gestation period. What happens in female fetus? You can write over here, especially 6th to 8th week of gestation period, around 1700 primary follicles are formed or developed. And you have studied about primary follicles during the structure of ovary, internal ovarian structure. So where we have discussed about primary follicles, and out of the primary follicles, only one primary follicle gets a chance to become an egg. So during the sixth or first month of gestation period, or 1.5 month of gestation period, 1700 primary follicles are developed inside the female reproductive system or in ovaries. During the second month or 2.5 months of gestation period, 6 lakhs primary follicles are formed. Means there is a mitotic division. So mitotic division is carrying on. So that's due to multiplication or due to mitotic division, these 1700 primary follicles has now become 6 lakh in number during first 45 days of gestation period. Sorry, during 75 days of gestation period. Then in the 5th month of gestation period, these 6 lakh primary follicles now multiply to form 7 million primary follicles in 70 lakh primary follicles. But after 5th month, what happens? These 7 million primary follicles, they start shrinking, or you can say they start degenerating. Okay, so due to the shrinking of follicles or due to the degeneration of primary follicles, at the time of birth, these ovaries of this female fetus during the full embryonic development, at the time of birth, maturation, ovaries have 2 million primary follicles. 1700 in the first 45 days, first 60 to 80 days, 6 lakh primary follicles. The 5th month, 7 million primary follicles, and after 5th month, what would happen? Shrinking of primary follicles, or they start degenerating. So at the time of birth, ovaries do have around 2 million primary follicles. And from right from at the birth of the female to up to the puberty stage, when when a girl attains puberty at the age of 11 to 13 years, these 2 million primary follicles, their number now have reduced to around 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles. So at the time of puberty, a female has, or female's ovaries have around 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles. And out of these 60 to 80,000 primary follicles, out of every 500, you can say the cluster of cells, clusters of like this, cluster of primary follicles. So out of 500 cells, or out of the cluster of 500 primary follicular cells, only one cell will be changed into primary oocyte, secondary oocyte, then oocyte or egg. So out of 500 primary follicular cells, only one cell would get a chance to become an egg. Okay, so it's all about the changes which have taken place during the gestation period inside the mother in case of female fetus. Okay, so let's discuss about oogenesis, or formation of ovum, or the process of making egg or ovum. So as I told you, it is discontinuous process. Okay, why? We will discuss. And this is completed in 3 phases, as we have seen in case of spermatogenesis, but a slight change in case of oogenesis. 3 phases we have: multiplication phase, growth phase, and maturation phase. As I have told you earlier, multiplication phase is all about mitosis. That means it's all about multiplication. Growth phase, in case of female, or in case of oogenesis, growth phase is all about yolk deposition. Yolk means yolk provides nutrition to the growing embryo. In case of spermatogenesis, this growth phase was all about enlargement of spermatogonia. But in case of oogenesis, growth phase is all about accumulation of yolk in order to provide nutrition to the growing embryo. Then maturation phase is all about meiosis, or meiotic division. Okay, so let's do it. 3 phases, as I told you: multiplication phase, growth phase, and then maturation phase. What happens in the beginning? These primary follicles, the cluster of cells, these primary follicles, one cell, first of all, what happens? Multiplication phase, they divide mitotically, and out of them, one cell gets a chance to become this oogonia, and they are diploid. Why diploid? Because they have undergone mitosis, and mitosis is equational division. Diploid will be remained diploid. So this oogonia will be formed, which is diploid under multiplication phase, and this oogonia, this diploid oogonia now would undergo growth phase. And as I told you earlier, growth phase during oogenesis is all about yolk accumulation. So in growth phase, what would happen? This primary oocyte, now under the growth phase, this oogonia has now become primary oocyte, then it would become secondary oocyte later. Now this primary oocyte, which is still diploid, because there is mitotic division in the previous step, now there is no meiosis yet. So after meiosis, it would become haploid. So it is still diploid. This primary oocyte, which is diploid, and this would undergo enlargement or growth, which is due to vitellogenesis. Vitellogenesis, Vitello, vitellogenesis. What is vitellogenesis? yolk deposition. So this growth in primary oocyte due to vitellogenesis means yolk deposition. Okay, so after growth phase, this would enter in maturation phase, and as I told you, maturation phase is all about meiosis or meiotic division. This primary oocyte now would undergo maturation phase. That means, first of all, meiosis 1. Meiosis 1, always remember, meiosis 1 is reductional division and meiosis 2 is equational division, as you see in case of mitosis. So first of all, meiosis 1 is which is reductional division. So after having undergone meiosis 1, this primary oocyte now has become secondary oocyte. They will form two daughter cells, and during the meiosis 1, what would happen? There is uneven distribution of cytoplasm. So due to uneven distribution of cytoplasm, you can see the difference over here. This is the normal size of this normal sized oocyte or secondary oocyte is with complete cytoplasmic units, or is with complete protoplasm or cytoplasm. And due to uneven distribution of cytoplasm, this one would get very little cytoplasm. That's why it would not grow to the size of normal secondary oocyte and known as polar body. So it is the first polar body which is the product of uneven distribution of cytoplasm during the meiosis 1 or reductional division. This first polar body would degenerate later. Now, this secondary oocyte with complete cytoplasm now would undergo meiosis 2. And as I told you, meiosis 2 is equational division, as we see in case of mitosis. So this meiosis 2, which is equational division, this secondary oocyte now would change into, now again, when it would undergo meiosis 2, again uneven cytoplasmic division, and due to that, again, when meiosis 2 would occur, this secondary oocyte would form again two cells. One is this normal sized oocyte or ovum or egg, and due to having less cytoplasm, second polar body, as you have seen in case of this first meiosis 1. So this would also degenerate later, and we have now got this oocyte or ovum or egg after meiosis 2. Okay, so one more important thing you have to remember during the process of oogenesis. Why do we call it discontinuous? As I told you, at the time of puberty, only 60 to 80,000 primary follicles are active, and out of every 500, only one primary follicle would get a chance to become an egg. So, at the time of puberty, what would happen? That oogenesis or the formation of egg has to be arrested. That means it would continue only after it would get a male gamete or sperm into the female reproductive body. So this oogenesis is arrested at this stage of meiosis 1, especially at the diplotin stage of prophase 1. So at the diplotin stage of prophase 1, during meiosis 1, this oogenesis is arrested. Okay, and it would continue, or it would lead towards meiosis 2 only if female reproductive system gets a male sperm in. Okay, so this meiosis 2 actually triggered only after the entry of sperm or male gamete. If there is no entry of sperm or male gamete inside the female reproductive body, then what would happen? This secondary oocyte would be released during the menstrual cycle, And if this secondary oocyte would get male gamete, at the time of entry of male gamete or sperm, this might meiosis 2 will be triggered, and due to the activation of meiosis 2, the formation of egg or oocyte would take place, and it would move toward the fallopian tube in order to get fused with male gamete or male sperm in order to form zygote, then embryo, then so on, as you know. So it's all about oogenesis. The next lecture we will discuss about egg, the structure and types. Thank you.